Hey, Michael, how are you? Nice to see you.
Roberto, it's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. So you are in Florida?
Yes.
Or are you still north of Miami, living somewhere?
Yes, I'm just north of Miami. I'm in out west in West Fort Lauderdale, out in the middle of the suburbs in West Broward.
Oh, wonderful. So how are things going there?
We're locked down like everyone else in the world. I run with my husband. I run a theater company called Zoetic Stage, as you know, in Miami, and we are in the middle of a very successful season. In fact, we were about to open up our third show, which was Sondheim's A Little Night Music. The set was up. We had 225 Edison light bulbs hanging from the theater over the set. We were about to start tech, and the following week we would have opened. And the day before we were to begin tech, the lockdown happened, and Miami-Dade County shut down all public places. And so here it is, 9 weeks later, and that set still sits in the theater that's locked down. No, we can't get in there to strike it. So we canceled that show, the last show of the season, and have rescheduled them to begin next season. So we're in lockdown right now. Primarily, I'm a playwright. The way I make my living is as a playwright. I've had work produced not only in the South Florida region, but off Broadway several times in regions around America and around the world. All of those productions, I've counted, there are right now over a dozen different productions that I had going around the world that have been shut down because of the pandemic. On the bright side, I got 2 commissions. I've got one commission from a theater in Palm Beach, Florida, and another from the west coast of Florida. And so I started working on those 2 projects, and hopefully that'll keep me busy until the restrictions are loosened and we're able to start getting back to more of a normal world.
So you were with your husband at really in the middle of opening up a new production.
Yes.
So where was Michael?
I was, it was really wild because I'm also an actor, and I was on Miami Beach, which at a theater that was about 10 minutes away from our theater, about to open in a big, lavish musical about the life of Louis Armstrong. And this was a huge production with a big cast and a stellar group of leads. It was being done at Miami New Drama at the Komödie Theater on Miami Beach. And it had its eyes set on a New York or Broadway production. So that was about to open. So I had my hands full with that. I had designed the set for A Little Night Music. So I had 2 of these major shows happening at the same time. And what I do is I'd be rehearsing for the show, The Wonderful World, which is the Louis Armstrong show, at night. And in the mornings, I'd be going in just to make sure that the load-in was going well with the set. So I was juggling both jobs. Stuart was directing the show, and he had his hands full with the production. It was in really great shape. Sometimes you do a show, and by the time you're about to put it into tech, it's like, oh my God, I'm not ready. We need more time, but we don't have, so we're gonna do. This was one of those shows that everything was in such great shape. It was ready to go and looking really good. So it was just ready to start moving into tech. So I had 2 situations that were really heartbreaking, because these are 2 projects that really promised to be really good stuff. I was really proud of the work I had done in both, one as an actor and one as a designer. And in both those situations on the same day, in fact, it was ironic because the day, the shutdown happened on Friday, and on that Thursday before, the managing director of the theater that I was working in as an actor came in and gave us the speech that was being given all over the country at artistic, cultural organizations, and that is, we have to stop the production. We have to cancel the production. I know we're opening tomorrow, but we have to cancel it. We had one more show, and that was it. And then the very next day, my space was shut down. So I had to give that same speech to my cast and my people at my theater.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was hard. It was a bad week. It was a bad week. It was hard.
Can imagine. So Michael McKeever, playwright, set designer, actor, the artist of these two beautiful posters that I have in my house.
I love that they're there. I love that so much.
For many years. So we do know each other pretty well, and we go back a long time.
Yeah,
so,
20 years, my friend.
Yeah, I would say almost more, a little bit more than that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So this is tough. This is tough.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's really hard.
So how are you handling this?
It's funny you said that, because at first I thought I was fine. I said, this is the world that it's going to be in. And we had such hope that we were going to reopen within a couple of weeks. So we were telling our people that, you know, give it a couple of weeks and we'll be back. It's just going to be. And then as we got into the day 5 and day 6 and day 7, we realized that a couple of weeks wasn't going to happen. So then we said, in a month or so, I think we'll be back in a month. And then when we got past that understanding that it wasn't going to be a fast turnaround, that we were going to have to kill the rest of the season, that the world was going to have to be shut down for all these months, it became really depressing. And I found myself, people were saying, well, now it'll give you time to go home and write. For the first 2 months of this whole thing, I couldn't bring myself to write. I said, it's, you know, I'm a very fast writer. I can turn plays around very, very quickly. But I just couldn't get myself to sit down and focus. I found myself so overwhelmed emotionally and artistically by what had happened that I wasn't in a place to write. And I've never forced myself to write. One of the joys that I have about writing is that it's never been work. I've been blessed that I'm able to support myself comfortably as a playwright, and I have for the past 20 some odd years. But along the same lines, one of the things that's really worked for me, and one of the reasons why I love my gig so much, is because it's never felt like work. And so I didn't want to feel like I had to fill this time, or I was wasting my life or time if I wasn't writing. So I didn't. And I read a lot. I did a lot of cleaning out of closets. I did a lot of cleaning of the house and organizing of the house, and did some jobs here and there. And me and my husband spent some, quality time together, and that was, nice. But it wasn't until about a week ago, which here we are in May now, where I was actually able to sit down and I, at this point, I had some really good ideas. And I had, like I said, I had a couple of theaters approach me saying, what would you like to write? And I had these ideas that I've been thinking about for years now. And for the first time since this happened, I was able to sit down. And I have to say, I've been writing a lot in this past week. But the beginning of it, for the longest time, I just couldn't bring myself to really do anything more creative than, cleaning out closets.
So how are you writing now? Is this experience affecting the way you sit around and in front of the computer or paper and write?
Yes, believe it or not, I find, and it could also be with age, the older you get, I think the deeper your writing becomes, and I think the edgier your writing becomes, and life experience feeds into that. The play that I'm working on right now is called American Rhapsody, and it's more politically charged than anything I've ever written. And I like it. I'm enjoying it. I'm finding I have an anger that's affecting the way that I'm writing. I'm not saying that anger is necessarily coming out onto the page, and it's certainly not a soapbox play that I'm writing, or a play with a very heavy message. But the situation that we're all living through right now is certainly, and the anger that it's causing in me is certainly affecting the way that I write.
So let's talk about that anger a little bit more.
Sure.
It is one of the advantage of being an artist, to have some anger that motivates your work, right? You said that now you're writing something that is politically charged, that is a little bit more politically charged than your previous work. So can we unpack a little bit this idea of anger? Because there is a negative connotation, but we know in art,
Oh, absolutely.
It's not.
I completely agree. It's funny. I do master classes and teach it, and every so often we'll teach playwriting to different universities and schools, around the country or certainly in this region. And I always say, it's essential. So many people every so often I'll read a new play, or we'll do some exercises, and people just put dialogue, and I say, guys, you need to put some conflict in there. Without conflict, it's just people talking. And if I want that, I can go to the Starbucks and just listen to people talk. So conflict is essential to any form of storytelling. That conflict is what drives the show. It's what moves the storytelling along. And so the whole concept that you can't put anger into a work, even in the lightest of comedies, there has to be some form of anger or frustration or angst, because that's the engine which drives the story that moves the play along. So I completely agree with what you said. I think it was beautifully put. People think anger is a bad thing when you're putting into artwork, but it's not. I think anger or conflict or angst is what drives the play or drives the story that you're trying to tell.
So you said politically charged. Can you define that?
Sure.
What do you mean by political and, well, we're not charged, but really.
Right. The play begins the play that I'm writing begins in 1969. And it really talks about, again, it's something that I've been thinking about for a while and about, because we live in such a strange time, and not only in America, but the world in general, where, we have alternative truths and right is wrong and wrong is right. And suddenly the phrase, fake news becomes something that's an everyday occurrence. And where you can present logical people with the facts as you see them, and they will come up with every reason in the world why those facts are no longer facts, because they're getting their alternative facts from, Fox News or some two-bit conspiracy theory website. And that lack of communication and those brick walls are something that I personally never seen in my lifetime. Anyway, that being said, I've gone back in history and started doing the research for this particular show. And I find that even though the weirdness that we're existing in now wasn't back there, there has always been this great divide. And maybe it's what makes this particular country great. Maybe, again, it's the engine that keeps the country moving. But in finding that, I'm using that as a thread that's going to run through 100 years of the course of this particular play. And of course, you don't want it to be political, but every time I do the research on it, it always goes back to politics. It always goes back to some form of politics. And I don't mean Democrats, Republicans yelling at each other in Washington. I just mean the politics of the country in general, which I think is broader and in some ways more dangerous.
So I was struck by what you just said. You don't want to be political. Why?
Because I find that if you get very political, I think you can, your story, your play, your artwork can be more effective if it's not labeled as a political piece. I think you could make your statements or present points of views, in the case of this play, different points of views or varied points of views, without it being, quote unquote, a political play. I think it's important that you don't label something so people will immediately discount it or box it as one certain kind of play. It's my hope in most everything that I write that I appeal to the broadest audience possible, and therefore have an impact on the broadest amount of people. And my fear is that by calling it or labeling something a political play, that it's you're going to lose half your audience before they even step through the door. I wrote a comedy called Clark Label Slept Here, which was a broad almost farce about a major manly movie star who's about to win his first Golden Globes Award, while the staff and his management team try to figure out what to do with the dead male naked prostitute in the hotel room that he just left. And what started off as this broad comedy ended up being a very, very charged political statement about what it means to be a man in America. But the audience didn't know that going in. So that's why I'm very cautious about creating political work. I like the political work, the political statements or the lessons to be learned. I like hiding them under the play or within the play.
So it is a necessity not just to talk to the choir, but to talk to also those people that may have a different idea of the political statement that you want to make.
Absolutely.
And Absolutely. By reaching them, you can have the hope that there is some kind of conversation there happening.
Perfect. Exactly. And a prime example, the play that I'm working on right now, the one that I just started, I'm making it a very concerted effort to present both points of view throughout the course of history, throughout starting in the 60s, through the 80s, through the September 11, all that, to have very, very specific points of view on either side, on all sides of the spectrum, just so people on the left hear the people on the right, the people on the right hear the people on the left. So I'm trying to make sure that there are no black and white villains in this, just so people listen.
So since we are talking about this play that you are writing in this moment, so it's a fantastic opportunity to talk to the playwright in the process of writing, you know? Why this play now?
Because it's been in the back of my head forever. And it's something that I've always wanted to address. But again, right now I find the country is in it's such a mess right now. And it's in there's such chaos that even something that would I think more normal times be unifying, something as unifying as a pandemic, where the country should be able to come together and work as a whole to save and save as many lives, especially when there's so many poor, weak, older people who are succumbing to this. And if anything, it's just making the divide wider and wider. And I find myself, who in my family, I'm certainly the less political person. My husband can get very political and feels very strongly about certain things. And I've always, while I feel things passionately inside, I've never been one to stand on a soapbox and make speeches. And yet I find for the first time in my life, in my adult life, where I find myself getting angrier and angrier by the lack of leadership and the lack of control. And now we're simply at a point where there are people dying. People are dying because of the chaos in the country. And that anger has really fueled me to work on this play. And over the course, like I said, I've just started, but over the course of the past few days and working with it, I find points of view that I've taken and what I thought the play was going to be, I find it's evolved over the last 3 days to take more of a biting point of view from both sides, because I think it also reflects the time in which we're living in. And that's what we try to do with art too. I think is that you're always trying to reflect, you write something that reflects the times, the zeitgeist of the world that you're in.
So you mentioned before this world of alternative truths, where there is no, there are obviously different truths for the same reality. So in that case, what is your role as an artist in dealing with this in a world that, there are so many strong points of view that are transformed into reality that may be in conflict with each other, do we let it stand? Do we do something about that? I mean, what?
I think there's a whole bunch of different ways to approach the situation that you just said. What I like to do, and I've tried it throughout my career, and I'm certainly trying it with this new play, is to present both sides of the coin, whether I agree with both of them or not, because in this situation, clearly I don't. However, I think it's important that you present both sides of you, because then as an artist, and again, without being heavy-handed, and I always say you never want to stand on a soapbox, because the minute you have your characters start preaching to people, you lose half your audience. I think it's much more effective if you do it quieter and more subtly, and have a conversation. And maybe, just maybe, you'll have your audience members, the people who are watching and listening, hear something that they've never heard before. So I think as an artist, it's important to explore different points of view. I mean, you want to get your statements that you want to make, you want to get them out, but at the same time, I think it's important, and I think it's interesting to explore other points of views as well. I think it affects you as a writer, and it makes you a better storyteller if you look at things from different points of view. Mind you, that doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but I think if you're creating characters, you really need to understand where they're coming from, and have some kind of empathy for where they're coming. A villain who is written as a villain, to me, is a very boring villain. I mean, if a villain has a black hat and a mustache and cackles and if they're that dimensional, then leave that to the cartoons. If you have a villain and you have someone who's doing something that you think is really wrong, you need to, for the sake of that character and making it something three-dimensional and interesting, you've got to make that character believe and love what he's doing, and have a really good cause and history to believe as strongly as he does to do what he does. And that's just good writing, I think.
So in this moment, you're writing. You have been writing for 25 years at least.
Yeah. 1999.
So, and then something happened, COVID-19, and how would you analyze what has happened to the world through COVID-19 as an artist?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. How would I analyze it? I would say the world has gone haywire, and nature, or God, or gods, or the universe, whatever definition you want to give that greater power, has said enough is enough, and we all have to stop. Everything has to stop. Let me put the world on hold for just a minute, because in our lifetime, we've never seen anything like this, where 90% of the world has shut down, where even September 11th, the horror of that, it was so horrible, and such a brick wall that the world smacked into. But within a week, we knew that we were back on track. We knew we had seen that the world has certainly changed, but we had gone back on track, and we had started up again. And within that first 6 months, we were moving almost business as usual, even though the world had changed. But in this situation, this great unknowing of what the future holds. I mean, I've spoken to friends all around the country who run theaters and work in theaters, both in New York and California, and no one knows what's going to be on the other side of this. No one knows when we're going to open. We're supposed to start our season at Zoetic down in Miami. We're supposed to start our season in October. That's the game plan. That's plan A. Plan B is that we start open we open in January. Plan C is that we open in March. That's how unknowing the future is for all of us right now. And there's a there's a lesson to be learned about so much of it. The fact that we were not prepared. The world wasn't prepared, but America, I think in particular, it's been eye-opening to see how the greatest country in the world could fumble and stumble in the dark with so many people dying. Again, something like that is something I would have never said before, but I'm angry at the state of the world right now. So yeah, by analyzing the situation is that I think, it's simply a way of the world, or like I said, the greater power of God saying, everyone, everything needs to stop. And it did. And we're still in limbo. We're just still feeling around in the dark. And there are little points of light out in the distance, but we still have no idea how close or how far away they are. And as we stumble towards them, we don't know if they're gonna flicker out and go away, or they're gonna get bigger. It's all we can do is just keep stumbling towards that light and hoping that it's the right direction to get to, and that we eventually get to it.
So following through on your definition of this, a god or gods that have said, stop, let's take a break, this is not working, right? Instead of looking at what's on the other side, in this moment, how can the artists help God or the gods to make this point reach everybody, so that we can go on the other side with a different system? Or is this what we should be doing? Or is this this happened, let's just wait that the politicians figure this out, and then hopefully we'll go back to the normal. We have a theater season, I am challenging you here on this, but
and here's the thing. What I would love, there's two different answers. What's going to happen, and what in a perfect world? In a perfect world, it would be exactly your first scenario. In other words, we would, as artists, and it's really wonderful in this time that we're all locked down. It's the artists that are keeping everyone insane. It's listening to music. It's putting on TV and binging these beautifully written and acted shows. It's watching all the on-air theater that people have suddenly discovered. It's reading. Suddenly the world is reading again. We've read so many books that I've been given the opportunity. So it's the artists that are keeping the world sane right now. And I think that's something very special. And that, if you take a big step back and notice it, look at it, you see that. But like everything else, you take that for granted. And in a perfect world, the artist could use this moment to say, look at what we have, and to take a minute and stop and see how we've gotten off track, and now we can start over again, and do that in the stories they tell, whether it be in music or theater or dance or literature. And the world would read that, and as this new starting point, we would slow down, and it would not be such a divided world. And I'm not saying we'd all hug each other and sing Kumbaya, but there'd be a slower pace and a more sense of community, not only in the country, but in the world. That's the perfect world. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is that within a year or 2 years of this passing, and I'm not being cynical here, I just think this is what we are as human beings, and this is the world. We'll be right back to where we were. I think the lessons to be learned here, I think we as human beings, we have a very short memory when it comes to learning lessons. And I think the lessons to be learned here will not be learned. I think we'll all remember, and we'll all talk about what it was. And then the next generation that grows up will say, yes, I was a baby back then. And I don't remember. I just remember that daddy grew a beard, and mom and dad fought a lot. And we joked about toilet paper, and that'll be it. Like I said, the lessons of what should be learned and what we should all take away from this, sadly, I don't think we will. In a perfect world, it would be that first scenario that we just talked about. But again, I'm not necessarily a cynical person. I just think that's human nature. This is fun.
Michael, I would love to disagree with this.
Okay.
It is, two possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me that this, as you pointed out, we are in a situation where the world has never been in, because everybody is in the same boat, right?
Yes,
Everybody
absolutely.
is fighting for the same, is having the same experience. An experience that is transforming us, has transformed us, as many people are suffering. And we have seen the shortcoming of a system that was not working, right?
Absolutely.
Now, the system wants us to go back to the normal. And I think that we have to resist going back to that normal. Because if we do go back to that normal, the second solution that you have proposed, you're right, we will forget. And in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's going to happen again. And that time is going to be even worse than what it is now.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
So that's why I think this is different. Because we have clearly, and this is not just me, I'm no one. I'm an artist. And I, like you, I'm trying to tell stories. But I know one thing that you said, that everybody said. Art has kept us sane, right?
Absolutely.
So why, if art, and let's talk about the artists that created the art, has kept us insane, why should we accept, as artists, to go back to a secondary function within our system? Why can't we artists say, yes, there are two possibilities. One, the best one, just as you presented, was so clear and right. What you said was so right. But why are we to accept the second option without fighting?
You know what? I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think, you put it like that, and there's no reason why, I mean, because as artists, there's no reason why that means that we can't take a stand and say, look at the work we're doing. Look at the work in the world that we are representing in the artwork that we create. And when you were saying that too, I'm saying, well, look at me. As a result of what's happening, I'm writing this whole new type of play. I'm writing a play like I've never written before, because of what the world has become, because of where we are right now. So maybe you're right. Maybe that is the answer. Maybe artists are what, or maybe that's where the change happens, in the work that's produced by the artists who are changed by the world as it stands right now.
And now I'm going to get on my soapbox here, because something that I learned through my conversations with you guys, we see the artists, and we always talk about the work of the artist, right? Because the artists are their work. We know that.
Right.
Now that's what you Michael, are the play you write, the set you design, the place you act in, your art. That's what you are. But I think that there is the Michael that is executing the art, and who is the artist.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And the Michael that, like any other artist, has some tools in order to do what you do so well.
God, I'm following.
And being an artist and having those tools so defined, I know that Michael recreates new worlds, has the vision of a new world, right? Michael, although now your plays are produced all over the world. Michael had to learn how to do that. Had
Right.
to learn
Yes.
how to become an entrepreneur.
Right.
Had to learn how to make some money out of the work, right?
Absolutely.
And also, like any artist, you have to learn how to budget yourself.
Absolutely.
As an artist, what do? We go from crisis to crisis to crisis. Our work is about troubleshooting.
And it's funny, anyone who's an artist knows exactly what you're saying. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but I want to remind everybody that of everybody in this world, in this moment, because of what you just said, all the artists are the ones that are more used to it, because we are also often in the quarantine when we have to work, right? Isolated, because we have to. So we know how to be in quarantine, right?
Exactly.
We know when there is a challenge, how to solve it, how to see things differently. So my soapbox that it has been in the last week in every conversation I had, because I'm learning so much, Michael, from you, from everybody, is that clearly, maybe I'm sure has happened also in South Florida, but the funding for the arts went away, right? Of course, everything went away. In San Antonio, everything went away.
Yeah.
All over the world, the funding.
We just, I don't know, but yeah, keep going. Yeah, we're like, we have one, our county's been wonderful with it, but every of the funding and support that we've been getting normally, nowhere. But please, go ahead.
So the funding is the first thing that went away.
Yep.
But if we are the ones whose work is keeping people alive, and if we are the ones that are the ones that have the tools to survive this moment, because our life is this moment all the time.
Absolutely.
Why can't we use the talent, the knowledge, the know-how, the craft, the ability to solve problems that the artists have to contribute to the solution to this problem? Why, instead of cutting the funding? Because that's our problem, Michael. We talk about our art because that's what we are. We talked about all the funding that they have taken away, that's what funds our art. And then people think that we are the complainers, the ones that, there is something more important than you guys.
Right.
But it's not true. We are as important as everybody. And I tried to talk to the mayor of town, who is an alum of Trinity University, whom I know personally, and I haven't been able to talk to him. And I think as an artist, I think, oh, but he has more important things to do. And then I think, no, we are as important. Why can't artists, with all the talents that we have and the knowledge that we have, why don't we sit at the table and contribute and work with the leaders, because we are leaders, and figure out how to solve this problem, how to create a new life. Even before asking to the mayor, can you give me money? It's not about that. It's going to the politicians, to the leaders, and say, please help us help you. We can help you. Because we are the ones that can help contribute, finding a solution.
Absolutely. No, I got to tell you, kiddo, you know what? I love hearing you say that, because it's crystal clear and it makes perfect sense. But the world doesn't hear it. That's the thing. It's like it's what you just said. People think of art as pretty things that you hang on the wall, or books that are meaningless, or even less than that, theater. But when it's such a major contribution to the world, and like I hadn't even thought about it. It's a major part of the solution to the world, the other side of the world, when we get to the other side of this.
Yeah, but don't you think we need to get on it now?
Now.
In this moment?
Yeah.
And instead of going to the politician asking for money, more funding, going to the politician and say, hey, I built a theater company that is very successful. I created something. I know how to create. I know how to solve problems in a very creative way. Yeah. Can I be part of this conversation and help you, politician? Because now they are the ones that said, and help you figuring out what we need to do in Miami, in San Antonio, around the world, and see if we together we can find a way to create a new world. Because once we are seated at the table, we got the power.
Right.
And nobody's going to kick us out. And then once we have helped solving the problem, my friend, we can start to think, okay, how should we fund the arts? What is the role of the arts?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, to finish up.
Yeah.
Just today, I was talking to a friend of mine who is the artistic director of Potlatch in Italy,
sure.
A very important theater. And he said, you know, Roberto, what's happening lately in Italy? And I said, I know what's happening, but you tell me. And he said, now in Italy, it's ridiculous. They have figured out how important art is.
Just now?
By the politicians. Now there is a minister for the arts. You know, that's how we have it. There is a person who is the politician, that is the minister for the arts, that has realized that art and culture is very important for Italy because Italy has 70% of all the art in the world, of the history. And they realized that, oh my God, we have to fund the theaters. And we have to help the art right now to survive because this is very important. So now they are giving the funding to all the artists and the art at the 80%, not 100%, wow. Without asking for any paperwork, because they know they cannot do the work. So they have to justify only 20% of the money they're gonna get.
That's great. That's amazing.
And I said, how did you do that?
Yes.
He said, we artists, we went and we start together. He has a very major festival there, it's called Fleet. And he put together this coalition of people with run festivals in Italy of any kind. And they wrote this letter to the prime minister, not the prime minister, the minister of the arts and culture. And he realized, oh my gosh, these people are right. So he didn't say that they have a place on the table, around the table, whatever you say in English.
Right. No, that's it.
But definitely they are doing something there.
Do you think that philosophy could ever work in America? It did work in New York. The Broadway, for all it's worth, the Broadway producers and the Broadway League, they are playing a major part now in the reopening of the city. Their input, of course, it's Broadway, which is a major line item when it comes to money income into the city. So I'm sure that plays a major part of it. Well, but in general, in America in general, can that philosophy work? Having the artists at the table.
We don't.
I think it's valid. I think it's good.
Michael, we don't know until we try.
Right. No, you're right.
We don't know until we try. I am very motivated by this, and my students will have to watch all these videos. They will figure out the last 10 videos I have been talking about this. But it feels to me that one thing that I discovered, and being as important, to test it with my artist friends, and to get some feedback, but also in a way to start creating a consciousness in which we do refuse both options. the more beautiful option where we are all brothers and sisters and all that. But also we refuse the other option. We're going to go back to it.
Right.
And
right.
find a third alternative. And I think that, gosh, man, if we don't do this, or we don't have this conversation, if people like you that are leaders in your community, you and Stuart, don't even start having this conversation, I think that we will have lost a great opportunity.
Well, I take my hat off to you, Roberto, for raising it, and for raising it so beautifully, for being so concise about how you feel about it, and for presenting it, because it's something that to be perfectly honest, I had never even considered before. So it's definitely something to fight for. The question is, and again, and you know this as well as I, is, how receptive will they be, and how much of a fight does it become to get that space at the table?
Well, we have to, and I don't know. And that's why we need the artists. In this moment, I don't know. But I think that if you and I start talking in 10 hours or 1 week from now, then we will say, okay, let me think about, I'll get back to you. We will find a solution. Because that's what we do, Michael.
Right. On a daily basis.
We do. We will start to think about, oh my gosh, if we apply our creativity to the problems that we think that we don't have to deal with, right? But to the bigger problems, well, we do it by creating new worlds, right? But let's look at city government now. And let's see, okay, how am I going to write this city government now responding to this crisis? Michael, I know you're going to find a brilliant solution. Or at least an alternative.
Right.
A possibility.
Right.
Because I know this is difficult. I know this is difficult. But I'm thinking, who is talking to the mayor of San Antonio?
Right.
Why can't we have some leaders in San Antonio, like in Miami, in South Florida, artists that have built fantastic organizations, or they do fantastic work. Why can't they even have a conversation with the mayor?
Right.
Why can't,
I get it. I understand what you're saying. And my question is, will they listen? Will they listen? And how many times do we have to fight to get them to acknowledge the whole concept of having an artist at the table?
I think this is a conversation that has to happen, Michael. We need to have a conversation.
Yes.
And see how that is going to respond. After all, don't they use art to get voted into office?
Yeah.
They use propaganda to get voted into office?
They do, completely.
Don't we contribute to that language, but because we are paid and we just do it for them? Can we do this for ourselves?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second.
Please.
I'm in the middle of an interview. Is it everything okay? That was me. I was going to try to text you instead, but I'll call you as soon as I'm done here. Thanks. Sorry about that. That was my mom, and during this, whenever she calls, I pick up. So
absolutely. Actually, this is normal now.
Yeah.
It's just part of having a conversation. We accept them, and that's what it is. I mean,
remember when we used to meet not in our house? I mean, I kind of like meeting like this now. I'm used to it, but the days of just going to a school or a conference room or something like that, those days are long gone right now. So
yeah, and we don't know how this is going to change us.
Yeah,
but I must say that I find this way of communicating very, empowering and beautiful, because really my focus it's never been distracted by anything else. I am really looking at you. I'm really listening to you.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a journalist that is works for the radio here, and I said, I am exhausted every time I finish this conversation. And he said, welcome to my world. It takes so much energy.
Yeah.
It's so invigorating.
I have to tell you, this is the first time I've done a one-on-one on a Zoom meeting like this, and I like it. I like it a lot better. Usually it's 9 or 5 or this. I like the one-on-one though.
I love the one-on-one. Yeah, I love it because we get really to have a conversation, a real conversation. Michael, my friend,
my dear
thank you for the time. But let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.
If you think that there is an artist, someone I should talk with, please put me in contact with that person.
Will do. Absolutely.
I would love to do that. This is part, this is a longer conversation. And I do hope that you have a similar conversation with your point of view, with other people.
I will, and I think the what we were talking about needs to be continued, needs to be paid forward. I think that it's something that artist to artist. I love the potential that it represents, and I think it should be. I will. In fact, there's a couple of people that come to mind. I'm definitely going to talk to Stuart. I think Stuart would have some great insight. And I'd love to see what the two of you come up with together. So.
And if Stuart has some time to have a similar conversation without you around.
I know, I completely get it. Absolutely, that's what I'm talking about. I'll tell him.
I would love to talk with Stuart, also because he has a different challenge than you do as the producer, the artistic director, and the director.
Absolutely, and his point of view is a different one too, which I think is also interesting. So.
Yeah, so just let me know, because I don't have Stuart. I don't think Stuart is on Facebook, is he?
Yeah, sure he is.
Oh, yeah. Well, ask him if he would like to maybe next week have a conversation.
I would be happy to, and I think he'd be happy to. I think he'd love it. I think it'd be a really good conversation between the two.
Absolutely. Okay. Great. So, Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you. I love this. This was a blast. It's great seeing you, my friend. You look great, and I really enjoyed this. So, thank you for inviting me along.
And I'm looking forward to read the American Rhapsodies. And
me too.
Now I'm very curious.
All right, kiddo.
Oh, my friend, my love.
Ciao. Take care. My love to you. Bye now.
Ciao.